I'm saying that to say what I think Brother Du Bois was talking about is what some of our truly misguided scholars refer to in contemporary time as this biculturality. You see, that's what they have done. They have made equivalent, you see, functionally equivalent in terms of mental health functioning, a Eurocentric orientation in African people. So they are saying, and Brother Du Bois, what I read him as saying was that we got these two conflicting, realities operating in the African psyche. This American, he called it, and this African, you see. And the challenge for the African is to try to balance these things out. And I contend that's gross mental disorder, you see. They are antithetical, you see. That what Brother Du Bois was defining and what my misguided colleagues, I believe, are defining in biculturality is they are trying to give functional legitimacy to a gross condition of mental disorder in African people. Because what they're saying is the contradiction is the natural condition of African life. They're saying for African people to on the one hand be African, and on the other hand to think, feel, and act like white people somehow makes sense, has logic to it. That's normal. And somehow African survival can come out of that. African affirmation can come out of that. Somehow, most illogically, African optimization can express itself through that, you see. That's a dangerous position. That's a very contemporary position. Matter of fact, in academic circles, that's one of the constructs that's riding high now. Biculturality. That we are a bicultural people. So they're saying that to adopt the social reality of the enemies, the fundamental enemies of African people, anti-Africanism is healthy for African people. I mean, white supremacy couldn't state it better, could it? That's where we got it from. That's where we got that logic from. I call it white supremacy logic, you see. It only makes sense in a logical system defined by white supremacy domination, you see. And so, therefore, I think the instructive issue about this construct for us is to recognize that I believe all of us are afflicted by this condition of mental disorder under white supremacy domination. All of us are afflicted by it. I believe that we are afflicted in different degrees, however. Some of us more so than others, depending upon our particular circumstance in life. That some of us have grown up in a situation where we were totally encroached upon by the white square, and others partially encroached upon by the white square, and others only minimally encroached upon by the white square. What does that mean? That means contradiction prevails throughout, but it can exist in lesser degrees, you see. What I call from severe to minimal misorientation that can define the African personality under white supremacy domination. But again, I think that the important thing of this construct, it says that all African people suffer from it. Whether you are so-called highly educated or undereducated, whether you live in an economically, socially mobile environment or an economically depressed environment, whether you see yourself as wealthy or poor, or whether you see yourself in various other segmentations of African life, that you are afflicted by it. And most importantly, whether you see yourself as a healer or a healee, you see, you are afflicted by it. I like to always say, we get this thing on who's sick, the one on one side of the desk or the other side of the desk. You see, the one who's the sickest is the one who recognizes that somebody's sick, that they're sick. The other one is much sicker, you see, no matter what their role is in the society, you see. So oftentimes we'll find that the psychologist, the psychiatrist, or some other form of healer is much more disordered than the person that they're trying to heal. But because the social environment, you see, the social structure of white domination reinforces the one that it has, you see, anointed as sane, then the other person has a much more difficult time, you see, gaining some sense of legitimacy about their mental health. And that is, again, the contradiction. So usually any African who realizes this predicament of the African mind and attempts to strike a victorious blow on behalf of the African mind, the affirmation of it, they are defined as disordered by the white supremacy domination system. And it can be various degrees of disorderedness that you are labeled, depending upon the degree to which you stand committed and dedicated to challenging, you see, the destruction of white supremacy domination. So you see, we have this reversal of reality that takes place, whereby the sane under white supremacy domination becomes defined as the insane, and everything else is somewhere in between. And so you see that this is a very powerful system of mind control that is being imposed upon the African mind under white supremacy domination. And I call it culture misorientation, because I think that that's where the deficiency lies.